Welcome back to Policies on Democracy, where you get educated, informed, and enlightened on different policies in the American democracy. Of course, with your host, T. In today's video, I will be discussing the Bill of Rights, also known as the first 10 amendments of the US Constitution. As usual, all of my sources will be linked down below in a Google Doc, which normally has my notes and everything. That being said, if you would like to be educated, informed, and enlightened, of course, make sure to hit that subscribe button, that like button, and of course, comment. I want to hear your thoughts. Did you know these? Did you forget these? Did you even learn them yet? Let's get started. The Bill of Rights. What are the Bill of Rights? Well, see, the Bill of Rights refers to the first 10 amendments in the US Constitution. It is basically Americans' rights in relation to the government. It sets the rules and procedure for due process of law and reserves that not all powers are just delegated to the federal government. Some must include the state and the people. It specifies that the enumeration or establishing right in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Basically, meaning that the rights that are written here can't be taken away from the people. By the way, the Bill of Rights offers U.S. citizens protections from the federal government, state, and other people as well. Let's break down each amendment and equate that amendment to modern living and culture. First Amendment. Now, the First Amendment actually serves to protect civil rights. Yeah, it's very interesting. So, the number one is express idea through speech and press, aka freedom of speech. You may hear people say, "That's my freedom of speech, my First Amendment." Yes, that's part of the First Amendment. People are allowed to assembly or gather with a group to protest peacefully or for other reasons. Freedom to protest peacefully, of course. The key word is peacefully, which is interesting because how to interpret peacefully is very different. Ask the government to fix problems. Yeah, that's part of the First Amendment. You can protest to ask your government to fix problems. And usually it's because the problems were most likely created by the government. Protect the rights to religious belief and practices, freedom of religion. Yes, that's protected under the First Amendment. Prevent the government from creating or favoring a religion. Now, this is very, very important because a lot of governmental officials are under the umbrella of Christianity, which to me, have no problem. That's your faith, freedom of religion, right? But when you start pushing it as that is the religion of the government, that doesn't work because here in the amendment it says it prevents the government from creating or favoring a religion. So modern day times, for those of you who are like, oh, being a Christian is actually the religion in America. Actually, there is none because it's freedom of religion. So America actually has no set religion that everyone follows. There's freedom of religion, and the government can't create one or favor one because it's right there, written in the Constitution. Second Amendment. The Second Amendment protects the right to keep and bear arms, basically meaning you're able to keep weapons that you got legally. Hopefully you have a FOID card and a concealed to carry. You're not out here just buying weapons, okay? And you're able to bear those arms under the rules of your state. So stemming from the days of British rule, this key amendment is often discussed due to its modern day weaponization of the weapons being used on not just civilians, but children. It's been a huge argument of should we get rid of it? Should we do this? Blah, blah, blah. The access to multiple variations of firearms and the involvement of organizations such as the NRA, hey, how you doing? Who have contributed to multiple campaigns and organizations. Personally, for me, I actually respect this amendment due to its historical significance. When I learned about the amendments, we learned that the Second Amendment was very big because when the United States, before the Revolutionary War, was still under British rule, British soldiers were actually able to have weapons, and people who were not British soldiers could not. The soldiers sometimes may have gotten a little big shoulder and tried to, bully the little ones, and they was like, well we need to protect ourselves too. And so that's why I appreciate it, because of its historical significance, and it gave early Americans the right to protect not just themselves, their property and their liberty, and something that modern day people also should have a right to. Now, do I believe there needs to be tougher gun laws? Yes, but in regards to obtaining certain firearms that are meant to create serious damage in the least time possible. Basically, meaning weapons that are going to create the most damage with the least amount of time. How many rounds are shot and all of those. I do, however, support this amendment. Times have changed, and the same weapons that were once used to protect people are now being protected behind the amendment. And not even these weapons, there are other weapons that are dangerous, but they're being protected behind this amendment. Now, are the same weapons that are being used to injure people? That's a very interesting question. See, this amendment was created for people to protect themselves, but now those same weapons that we're supposed to have to protect ourselves are injuring more people. Hmm. But that's another conversation for another day. Let's move on to the next. Third Amendment. This one was very interesting. I totally forgot this one. But the Third Amendment prevents the government from forcing homeowners to allow people into their homes against their will, or to allow any soldiers or anybody in their home. So this amendment again was created during after the Revolutionary War, and was created to combat the issue that British soldiers were automatically allowed the right to take over private homes. Let's say they didn't have anywhere to stay, they saw a nice home. Hey, it's my home now. Get up. That's my bed. You and your wife, get up. Your kids, my bed too. Okay? In essence, it gives homeowners the right to deny a soldier entry and keep the sanctity of their home. Now, I have a question for you all. How does this amendment hold up today? What about if someone's renting from a landlord, but the landowner says that someone can come in? What are the rights that renters and homeowners have in this scenario? It's very interesting, and you can see a lot of these amendments were made during the time, and that makes sense because they were made during its time. But how do these amendments hold up today is the question I want to get to after going through all of it. The Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment bars or prohibits the government from unreasonable search and seizure of an individual or their private property. Basically, meaning the government cannot search without reason an individual or their private property. Okay? Many people actually forget that this is a right that they have, and they don't pay much mind to it. Even at times when this amendment can protect and aid them in regards to unreasonable searches. So it's very good to know your Fourth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment, similar to the First Amendment, serves to protect civil rights for people accused of crimes. It states that serious crimes must be started by a grand jury. A grand jury, it's typically a jury of 23 people selected to examine the validity of an accusation before trial. Another thing that this amendment also creates is double jeopardy. A person cannot be tried twice for the same crime unless new evidence that wasn't introduced at the first crime is introduced, or at the first trial is introduced at the second. There's a lot of plot holes for that, but you get the gist. Somebody can't be tried for the same crime twice. Okay, they can't have property taken away without just compensation, and people have the right against self-incrimination and cannot be imprisoned without due process of law, fair procedures and trials. Basically, you may have heard people say, I plead the fifth, meaning that they are stopping themselves from giving away any incriminating evidence that might pertain to any crime that was committed. Sixth Amendment. The Sixth Amendment provides additional protections for people accused of crimes. Number one, it guarantees a person the right to a speedy and public trial, meaning that a trial should not exceed too long or too short. Trial by an impartial jury in criminal cases, basically a jury that is fair and just. No bias allowed, which nowadays, in this day and age, can be very difficult to find. And actually, I want to research on jury duty because I'm in my 20s and I have yet to be selected for jury duty. My mom is in her 40s. She has yet to be accepted for jury duty. My aunt got accepted for jury duty in her 70s, I believe. So it's very interesting how the process of jury duty works. Be informed of criminal charges. So the accused should be informed of the crime that they are being accused of. You can't just arrest someone and not tell them what they're being arrested for, or you can't try to arraign them and you don't know what you're being arraigned for. Witnesses must face the accused. So anytime you have any witnesses, they have to be in front of the accused. The accused is allowed his, her, or their own witnesses. And they have a right to be represented by a lawyer, or if they want to represent themselves too. But most people take a lawyer. We're going to add the Seventh Amendment with the sixth one. The Seventh Amendment extends the right to a jury in federal civil cases, meaning that a jury can be used in federal civil cases. And we're going to add the Eighth Amendment too as well, because they all go together. The Eighth Amendment bars or prohibits excessive bail and fines, cruel and unusual punishment. So basically, it prohibits excessive bail or fines. Must match the crime, essentially, and cruel and unusual punishment, such as like an eye for an eye. You killed someone, you go. You did this, you get it happened to you. You rob a bank, somebody robs you. You see? The Ninth Amendment. The Ninth Amendment states that listing specific rights in the Constitution does not mean that the people do not have other rights that have not been spelled out. Basically, specific rights do not have to be spelled out for people in order for them to have those rights. Nor does it mean that people lose those rights that are spelled out. Very interesting that certain ideas might not be written in the Constitution, but those rights could be said verbatim, but it doesn't mean that they have to be written down. Interesting. And how does that fare today? Well, we've had a couple amendments past these first 10, obviously, because that's the whole point of an amendment is to add something, it's to amend it, which we've had. But now the question asks, like, if it is written, like I said, people don't lose those rights. But what if people are trying to make people lose those rights? Lastly, number 10. The 10th Amendment states that the federal government only has those powers delegated in the Constitution. Okay? If it isn't listed, it belongs to the state or the people. Okay? Basically meaning that the federal government can only use its powers as defined and interpreted from the Constitution. Any other power delegated will belong to the state and to the people. This amendment is very interesting because it means that the government should follow the rules of the Constitution, what is set forth. It also states that if it's not listed, it either belongs to the states or to the people. Now, what belongs to the states and what belongs to the people is another question. Because we know what belongs to the government, but every other state's different. Not all the states work exactly the same. Yes, they're under the umbrella of the government, but they have their own governments and they run things differently. Some do this, some do that, some have this process, some have this process. So it's really hard to tell what truly, really belongs to the people. Comment down below what you think belongs to the people. Now that you've been refreshed on the Bill of Rights, what were some rights that shocked you? Or did you know all these rights that Americans have that they are protected under with the first 10 amendments from the federal government? I know some of them I had to be reminded of and was a little like, oh, I totally forgot about that. What do you think it pertains to now? Do you think these rights still hold up even almost 250 years later? Do you think some of them may need to be amended, or do you think some of them are perfectly fine where they're at? Do they fit the times that we're in? Right? The Constitution was made in order to grow with times. Do you think the Constitution is growing? That's my question for you all. Make sure you comment down below. I really want to get your thoughts and your opinions. And again, if you would like to be educated, informed, and enlighten yourself. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, that like button, and of course, comment. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.